All right, everybody, we are live with the Combatcast. It's a man they call Dave and Chevy, and off the heels of UFC 302, we're going to talk about that and so much more this week. But Chevy, tell people what we got coming up. Actually, how about our sponsor first? My God.
Yeah, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Game Up, for sponsoring the podcast. Appreciate the support. They make a thirst-quenching adult beverage with a special blend of electrolytes. Currently comes in a variety pack with 4 great flavors: fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape.
That's right. Full flavor, 110 calories per can, low carb. Enjoy it. No guilt. Just a good product. Enjoy yourself some Game Up. Let's tell people what else we got coming up.
All right, June 15th, UFC Fight Night, Perez versus Tyra. That's a 7 p.m. Eastern card at the Apex, I believe. We'll also be talking a little bit about Silva and Sonnen in this boxing match.
Yes.
And then June 22nd, UFC Fight Night, Whitaker versus Chimaev from Saudi Arabia. That's a 3 p.m. Eastern card. We love those.
Yep.
And then June 29th, we'll be talking about UFC 303, McGregor versus Chandler, as long as there's no surprises before then.
Yeah. So, I mean, before we get into today's show, there was supposed to be a press conference in Ireland. Dana was even flying out the very next day or shortly after to go to this after UFC 302, and it got canceled mysteriously. And right before we went on to record, Conor McGregor released a statement that's basically saying it was stuff beyond his control. Me and Chevy were talking about, like, you never really know what to expect with these. I was wondering if the fight was going to get called off, but we're talking about Conor, for everything that he's been involved. Once the fight's booked, generally the fight happens. I can't think of a time he's pulled out of the actual fight, but bizarre, and you never really know what to expect with these, huh?
Right. You know that there's a lot of money and production that goes into these press conferences, especially a Conor McGregor one. So it must have been something pretty serious for them to call it off the day before. Luckily, I saw that Chandler didn't, he got informed right before he was supposed to get on a plane to fly to Dublin. So he didn't make a wasted trip to the UK, but or to Ireland. But it is interesting. Like you're saying, it could literally be anything. And, I won't rule anything out, including the fight not happening until the walkouts are happening. So
yeah, it's just a different. That's the thing, right? We've never had somebody, for good or bad, with the kind of power that Conor McGregor possesses in MMA. And even though, you think on one hand they like that, on the other hand, I'm sure there's a part of it they don't like, right? Because this guy can literally pretty much do what he wants and he's going to be fine. He doesn't need the UFC at all. But yeah, he's always kind of gone through with the fights. But, again, it's been several years now since he's fought. And you see these videos of him coming out and stuff, partying. You really just never know what to expect. And who knows, what's real, what's not real. But yeah, like you said, I won't rule anything out. Let's just see if we can get to the fight. I'm hoping for the fight for Chandler,
Right. Yeah, I'm sure when he got that news, he just saw dollar signs slipping away. But let's hope it's like some government clerical issue, or you can't get a permit to do this or something stupid like that, because those things do happen. So let's hope it's that and not Conor's out partying or has some pending accusation or something.
Somebody as popular as he is, has some enemies. It could be, it could have been a bomb threat. It could have been several. You never know. So
right, exactly.
So we'll talk. I'm going to mention probably Conor again a little bit later in our final segment today. Not our final segment. We'll talk about Dustin Poirer a little bit in his retirement. But before we get to that segment, let's kick it off with what we had this weekend: UFC 302. And before we get in this main card, I didn't get to watch the undercard. Anything you want to shout out on the undercard?
Yeah, shout out to Mickey Gall, who's back after being out for a few years. He did end up losing to I can't pronounce the guy's name, but he had a great fight with JDM recently. It was a very close fight. Mickey Gall looked miles better than he's ever looked in the UFC, especially striking wise. He just got edged out, I think. So good to see him back. Hopefully he can progress on. We can move on to the main card.
Sure. All right. Let's talk about the first fight on this card. Randy Brown, right? It was
versus Elizeu Zielinski dos Santos.
Yeah. I mean, I thought Brown just looked overall like the more complete fighter, you know. I thought he looked better on the ground. Dos Santos had his moments, but I just thought Randy Brown was just a better fighter tonight. I don't think there was really a lot to say. I think, did he call out Buckley after this too?
I don't remember. To be honest with you, it was pretty unmemorable fight for me.
Yeah. I was gonna say Buckley would be
I think that would be a good fight, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's 4 or 5 in a row for Randy, but not a memorable fight, but good for him to keep winning.
Yeah, he needs to get a name for sure. So Buckley would be a good. I don't think Buckley wants to fight down or whatever at this point, but I don't even know if that's down, to be honest with you. I think Buckley just got in the top 15, but with all the buzz around him, he's going to consider it fighting down. He's calling out Connor and shit. So
yeah.
Yeah.
You get Randy Brown.
Yeah. So, and that's a tough fight. Randy Brown has looked great. He is well-rounded. He uses his range very well. He's tall for the division. So good to see him putting it all together now. All right, let's move on. What was supposed to be Jaltian Almeida versus Alexander Romanov, that fight got moved to the to the prelims, and instead they put a much better matchup, I thought. Nico Price versus Alex Morono.
Yeah. Morono always comes to fight. He's an exciting fighter. Not a lot of boring fights, and these guys had some great scrambles, great exchange, but in the end, Nico Price pulls it out, and I believe this is the second time they fought, too. I think Moreno had a victory over him earlier, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You got me look at that now. But regardless, Nico Price gets the victory. I'll let you comment on this, but I was going to say, too, I'd like to see him maybe in there with a Neil Magny next, too, was what I was thinking.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough fight, I feel like. But, yeah. Stylistically, fun fight for sure. This fight was very good. It mostly was a kickboxing match, kind of sloppy, but very fun. They kind of just beat the hell out of one another. Very close fight. But yeah, Nico edged it out, so good for him.
He did lose to Alex Moreno. I don't know what I was saying.
Yeah, I don't remember. All right, let's move on. Kevin Holland versus Michel Oleksiejczuk.
Kevin Holland, man, looking sharp. We called it. We said he'd probably be on his game, back against the wall. And he looks good at middleweight. I think we had high hopes for him at welterweight, but for whatever reason, I just don't think he can compete with that upper tier at welterweight. So fight at middleweight. You're comfortable. You look sharp. Yeah, I got a great fight for him next. Chris Curtis.
Oh, yeah, that would be fun. I know Chris Curtis called out Costa because he seems to just fight whoever his training partner Sean Strickland fights immediately afterwards. But he said, if you want someone to, he was like, I understand your frustration. Trust me, Sean has been fighting that way. He spars that way every day. It's very hard to deal with. If you want someone to stand in the middle of the cage and bang with you, I'm your guy, respectfully. So, and tag McMahon. So that's a good call out. That is a good matchup. I like that. Good step for Costa because currently, we'll talk about him, but he doesn't have any wins over any current UFC fighters, I don't think.
Right.
So I think it's time for him to take a little bit of a step down. In competition, Chris still very tough. But as far as Kevin Holland, he looked excellent. Except he got clipped pretty early in the round. And that's after that, Oleksiejczuk did not respect Travis Lutter, black belt, Kevin Holland's ground game and got caught in a triangle position, which he switched to an armbar and then rolled over into. And then respect to Olejniczak, he did not tap out. Kevin Herb's arm pop. And he was looking at Herb Dean, and Michelle wasn't tapping, so he cranked it even harder, and he certainly broke it, or at the very least dislocated the elbow or something. Still didn't tap, and Herb had to stop it anyway because, the arm was at a gross angle. So shout out to Kevin Holland, though. Doesn't always have to be a great striking match like he tried to do with Wonder Boy. You have those skills on the ground. Let's get some wins.
Yeah, I agree. Good win for Holland. Co-main event.
Yep. Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa.
Strickland, just that ridiculous pace, in your face, unorthodox fighting style. Too much for Costa. Costa had some great leg kicks at the beginning, but not really enough to follow up on it. I never felt like Costa was out of this fight, but he didn't have enough to beat Sean Strickland. I mean, basically, I think if you look at it, Costa's best round was actually the last round, which was kind of funny if you look at this fight. But at the end of the day,
for the very end of the last round,
right,
Strickland just started to go ham on him. But
but
the rest of
the Strickland is just he's at the top of his game right now. He arguably did not lose that fight to DDP, and personally, I think he just upped his stock here a little bit. Maybe it wasn't the most exciting fight, but to me, it's just another big win for him. And I don't know. For him, I'd wait for a middleweight title shot at this point.
Yeah, I thought that the fight was pretty tough to watch. With it being the co-main, it was late. I was tired.
5 rounds.
It was 5 rounds of the exact same thing for 25 minutes. It was Sean trying to march Costa down and Costa backing up. And trying to circle away. Very few engagements other than Sean doing his little combo where he does a flamingo dance and he's throwing out these teep kicks, which Costa could just not get inside because of those teep kicks that just kept landing into his body. You mentioned the leg kicks that Costa had early on in the round, early on in the fight. He landed a couple good ones, but then Sean started checking them, and Costa didn't like that. He had his own leg hurt a couple times from those checks, so he pretty much stopped throwing them. And the thing about Sean is he just followed after Costa. I would have liked to see him kind of cut the cage off because he was doing the same movement the whole time. If he had cut the cage off, he could have cornered Costa and had him engage in a firefight, which is seemingly what Sean wanted him to do. Right. But, kind of a boring fight. Costa, like I was saying, I think he needs to take a step down. He's been on not a great streak lately. Although he looked pretty good against Robert Whittaker, not so great against Sean. Sean is a hard puzzle to solve, but
I think he's just so awkward and he's just so tough for people that, they have these moments where they freeze up. Just look at Adesanya,
Yep.
But hey, at the end of the day, Sean keeps rolling. So,
yep. Respect to him. Yeah. Probably sitting out for a title shot is good for him, I guess. All right. Main event. Yes. Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirer.
So I enjoyed this fight a lot, even though I didn't like the ending. You really, Dustin Poirer is a complete fighter, but you really got a taste of his grit here because Islam, man, he's so dangerous. He's so elite with that wrestling. But Dustin, probably a little smarter from the Khabib fight. He was able to hold off getting submitted. And that was really the first round, right? It was just Dustin, basically trying to avoid getting submitted. And the second round, he's able to stop some takedowns. And, Islam probably not getting enough credit for his striking and just how he mixes it all up because it's a different type of striking, right? And maybe it doesn't look as smooth and you go, oh, Dustin's a better striker. Well, yeah, he is, but it's not just striking. So it's just striking with the wrestling and stuff like that. And that's where Islam And Habib would do this too, where they get the better of you.
Right. The wrestling is such a threat that it opens up so many opportunities for the striking, and Islam takes much better advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah, I would argue. I mean, obviously Islam ended up submitting him in the 5th round, but if this had gone the distance, even though Dustin was always in this fight, I could have definitely seen Islam winning every round. I think there was a close round in round 4. But that being said, like Dustin, I also felt like was in this fight a lot of different times. Like he came back. The best shot, obviously, he landed was an elbow right up on his head and his eye on Islam, which opened him up. And can't say enough great things about Dustin Poirer. He was always in there, and despite being a complete fighter, I think the story is that at the end of the day, like he's just that bite on your mouthpiece kind of guy, and he's never really out of a fight. And I think that's what makes him an elite fighter. But at the end of the day, also we have to celebrate Islam, because I don't know if anybody's gonna beat this guy at lightweight.
Yeah, shout out to Dustin. Like you were saying, he was always in the fight for sure. But Islam just edged him out in basically every round. He is great, I feel like he fights to the level of his opponent a little bit, which maybe not always the best for him, even though he's fighting the top guys. But you'd like to see him be a little bit more dominant like Khabib was with some guys. But he does mix it up in a much more exciting way. He's a likable fighter for sure, and a nice guy. Gave lots of respect to Dustin before and after the fight. They had a little back and forth at the face-offs, which you want to see to build a fight, but all respect between them, so that's good. But yeah, I guess Sarukian would be next, right? Which was a rematch and would be very close. He's calling for the 170 fight. Bilal is in line for the 170 belt, and they're not going to fight each other because they fight in the same camp and they're very close friends. So I'm not sure they need to figure that out and talk about it. I know Bilal was like, hey, Islam, skip 170 and go to 185, and go beat Dricus du Plessis. But I don't know. We'll see what's going on with that. Personally, I'd like to see the Sarukian rematch, because I think they're so well matched. I think it comes down to just fight IQ, and at this point, I got to take Islam on fight IQ and experience. But skills wise, very close.
Is he clearly the best pound for pound fighter?
Not according to Dana White, because
that's how I wonder if he changed his mind then.
You want to talk about that quick?
It is what it is. Dana White said that John Jones is the best fighter pound for pound, because if anybody gets in the room with John Jones is the man who's coming out. I don't know if that makes you the best pound for pound, because I
don't think that's even true. How about if we wanted to figure out who was the best fighter, if only we could, put them in a cage and pay them to fight someone like I don't know, the other champion in the division, Tom Aspinall. Maybe if they fought in a cage, you could make money off this, and we would still see who the best fighter is.
Right. Yeah, it definitely sounds like a Dana narrative. Now, that being said, you can't take away from John's credentials. So Dana has this argument he's going to stand on. But I agree. And I mean, more or less too, the pound for pound thing is like, who's good at multiple weight classes. John dominated his light heavyweight run, although towards the end he was struggling. And we'll talk a little bit about that in this fight night card with the co-main event of Dominick Reyes here. All right. But yeah, I don't know. I just I think pound for pound is such a difficult thing.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he says
Mighty Mouse would be my pound for pound fighter.
Who?
Mighty Mouse.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of displaying like all skills,
best skill set.
Yeah.
No.
All right. So UFC 302, great card, but we're left pondering Dustin Poirier. Should he retire? Now, I would have said yes, but I'm going to play the fence here a little bit. I'm going to say wait just a bit, because even though we don't know what's happening, I'm going to paint a scenario for you here.
I think I know where you're going with this. Yeah.
Knocks out Michael Chandler. Islam will take that fight in a heartbeat, right? Islam will beat Conor McGregor, but it's a fight. Shit happens. Islam slips on a banana peel. Conor McGregor's your lightweight.
Islam does get hit.
Oh, I know.
So
it's not even the most ridiculous statement. It's just right. but we have to see what kind of Conor McGregor shows up with Chandler first. But
a drunk one. But yeah.
Yeah. So that happens. But yeah, so if Conor wins against Chandler and they just fast forward him to the title fight, which could happen.
Of course, yeah.
And then he won that. I feel like Dustin's right back in there if he wants it, because I think Conor would do that fight.
Yep, I think he would too, and I'm right there with you. I think if Dustin's only goal is to get gold, which he's done it all in his career. He's made the money. He's fought. I mean, his resume is ridiculous with the guys he's fought. So he's fought all those guys. If that's all his goal is, you can retire, quote unquote, retire, and sit out until, you train or whatever, stay in shape. And if Conor does that, or even Chandler is a win over Chandler too, somehow they fast track Chandler to that title. Sure. If Islam loses the belt, Dustin should be in contention to get a title shot with his name or whatever. And he has a great chance against anyone not named Islam.
I think it's like a playoff situation now where you have a great record, but unfortunately you've lost some key fights, and you can still, or I should say like in football, we're in the regular season, you're trying to get in the playoffs. You've lost some key matchups. So now you could still get into playoffs mathematically, but you're waiting to see what happens in some of these other key games,
you're fights. On the bubble, yeah.
Right. So you're waiting to see what happens. And for that reason, if I'm Dustin Poirer, like, I'm just going to sit out and just watch, because literally the next fight is at the end of the month. It could affect you. So if I see Conor, or like you said, maybe even Chandler win that and they get a step up, I look at that and I go, okay, maybe hold on. And maybe not even take another fight, like maybe just sit it out, wait, and see how it goes,
Yeah, it could go. I mean, it's a very jammed up division, so you can't sit out for too long and keep your relevance or whatever. True. But it's up to Dustin what he wants to do. I know he's been saying he feels great and everything, but he just thinks that this is the time he should retire because he's 35 or whatever. I don't think at this point, based on that fight against Islam, that was the toughest fight for Islam, not Volkanovski, in the last 5 years. So that first Volkanovski fight, which I thought that Volkanovski won, but so we know Dustin still has it at that top level for sure. So maybe you fight Max or something, or maybe Nate Diaz comes back to the UFC. You can get that, angle for that fight, because that's a fight people want to see and has been talked about for a long time. So maybe you can get that, which is a big money fight. I know he has money, but can you ever have enough money? So, and that can put you in contention. You beat somebody like that, or a Max, if Max wants to move up and take one before his shot at the belt. But you get one more big win and then see where the landscape is, maybe.
Yeah.
Go out on a win also.
Of course, if you are looking at this a playoff situation too, and you have a little bit of say in it, the team we're trying to avoid is Arman Tsarukyan.
Yeah. You want to fight anyone that's not a Russian wrestler.
Yes. So, but I think we're in agreement. I think let's hold the horses here on Dustin's retirement, and let's wait it out. Let's see what becomes available and not available, because he is such a good fighter, and I think he's still got options open even at 35.
Indeed. 55.
Right. UFC Fight Night. Let's get to it.
All right. Yeah. Let's talk about just on the undercard, because the prelims, nothing really of note. But on the undercard, Ricky Turcios, who I don't know if you'll remember this, he was on The Ultimate Fighter, but he also had a fight in the UFC where he held his hands up like this and he was yelling and stomping on the ground while he was fighting his opponent. It was a terrible, terrible fight, but that was very entertaining and funny. He's fighting Raul Rosas Jr., the young phenom who got checked by C-Rod, Christian Rodriguez, but has 2 wins in the UFC. So that's an interesting fight. That's on the undercard, but we're just going to get into this co-main event. Dominick Reyes versus Dustin Jacoby.
All right. Reyes here. This is an interesting one. 12-4, 7 KOs, 2 subs, 3 decisions. He's lost 4 in a row. One of those was a close fight to John Jones. A lot of people thought maybe he even arguably won that fight.
Very
However,
close.
after that, he got finished 3 times in a row by Jan Blachowicz, Yuri Prohaska, and Ryan Spann. I want to say he might have got a little careless in that Spann fight too. I don't know what to make of Dominick Reyes because at the same time, I also feel like John was slipping at light heavyweight there a little bit towards the end. But it's very fascinating that he had such this close call, and then he just followed it up. I mean, Gustafsson had a similar issue, right? I mean, he did eventually win his fights and get back in contention, but
OSP also.
Yeah, it's just a lot of these guys never seem like they're the same after they fight John sometimes too, though. Dustin Jacoby, who he's fighting in this here. Dustin is 19-8-1, 12 KOs, 1 subs, 6 decisions. He's lost 3 out of his last 4. But he's got a professional kickboxing record of like 10-8, and he's won some tournaments too. He's been all over. He's competed for Bellator, World Series of Fighting when that was in. He's been in the UFC. This is his second stint in the UFC. I think he's going to win because I really question Dominick Reyes' chin at this point because those were some brutal knockouts that he suffered.
Yeah, very, very bad.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate story that happened to him. And on paper, if these weren't the kind of knockouts, if they weren't that, I'd probably pick him. But being that Dustin Jacoby's strong suit is that he was a kickboxer and an elite striker, I don't like this matchup for him. I think it's going to end with I'll be respectful and say a 2nd round knockout for Dustin Jacoby.
Yeah. Like you were saying, Dominic been KO'd 3 times in a row. Why give him Dustin Jacoby, a knockout guy? The UFC hates this guy. They hate Dominick Reyes, and I don't understand why. But like you're saying, both have poor records in their last few fights. Why is this a co-main event, even on a fight night? I don't understand.
Yeah.
You don't want to showcase 2 guys who have 3 losses in a row or whatever. I don't understand it, but I am a fan of Reyes. I'm a fan of both guys, but I'm a fan of Reyes, and I hope he can turn his career around starting on Saturday. But I'm with you. I don't think that's going to happen at this point. And I think Dustin KOs him in the 2nd round as well.
Yeah, but yeah, and nothing against Dustin. I'm rooting for that to happen because he was so close to the mountaintop, and I think it'd be a great story to see him get back. But man, when you get knocked out like that a couple times in a row too, and this gives me Luke Rockhold vibes.
Right. Yeah. Reyes is a great athlete, but I'm with you. I just think his chin at this point can't hold up after the Yuri and the Jan KOs. I don't think it can hold up anymore. But let's move on to the main event. Jared Cannonier versus Nassourdine Imavov.
13-4-1, 5 KOs, 4 subs, 4 decisions. He's 3-1-1 in his last 5 fights. All right. Just looking at this win record here. Shabazian, Buckley. He's just coming off of I hate this guy's name. Roman
Dolidze.
Dolidze, yep. Yeah. And his only loss is to Sean Strickland.
Which was very close.
Was to Sean's partner, Chris Curtis, which was an accidental clash of heads.
And that loss to Strickland, I think, was a split decision, too.
Yeah.
It was very close.
So Jared Cannonier, on the other hand, 17-6, 10 KOs, 2 subs, 5 decisions. He's 7-2 at middleweight. All right. Wins since middleweight. David Branch, Anderson Silva, Jack Hermanson, lost the decision to Robert Whitaker. Wins over Kevin Gastelum. Derek Brunson lost to Israel Adesanya by decision. A win. He has one over Sean Strickland too. Yeah,
he won a close split decision. That was a BS decision according to Sean Strickland, but it was also a split decision, I believe.
So these two are two of the best at middleweight when you look at their records and who they won and lost to. Cannonier coming off an injury, I believe, and some time off. So that could be a difference maker in this fight. That could be some problems. But I'm going to go with Jared Cannonier because I feel like he is such a mentally strong guy and he's constantly improving. And for him, an injury away could be a blessing in disguise. He's the kind of guy that could take time and really do what he needs to do. He is getting older, but until I see somebody, not Whitaker or Adesanya, beat this guy, I'm gonna go with Jared Cannonier in these type of decisions, these type of fights right now. So decision.
Yeah. We're very much on the same page with this week. So Imavov has looked great, but he hasn't fought the same level as Cannonier. I know Jared's 40 years old, but he's looked really good. And until I see him slowing down, until he looks other than good, I'm going to pick him in these kinds of fights where the guy's pretty much just going to stand up with him. So I'm with you. I'm going to pick Jared by decision, if not KO. Imavov's never been KO'd. That's the only thing that makes me think he won't get knocked out this time. But if anyone can do it, Cannonier's got the power.
He does have the power. All right. Let's tell people we got coming up one more time.
All right. June 15th, UFC Fight Night, Perez versus Tyra. Talk a little bit about Silva and Son in boxing match. And then June 22nd, UFC Fight Night, Whitaker versus Chimaev from Saudi Arabia, 3 p.m. Eastern card. And then June 29th, UFC 303, McGregor versus Chandler.
All right, some good fights. It starts this weekend, guys. Check it out. Thank you for tuning in to Combatcast, and let's drink some Game Up.
If you haven't tried Game Up, then you are missing out. Imagine your favorite seltzer and your favorite sports drink had a baby, but it's way better than that. Each can is 110 calories, low carb, 4.9 ABV. It's a nice light drink that is not light on flavor. Game Up comes in fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. Pick it up at drinkgameup.com.